I was never a fan of comic books and superheroes and all the rest of it. I was more into movies and TV. Movies, I remember the first movie I went to see was The Poseidon Adventure, and I was into that kind of, 70s disaster flicks, Airport 75, 77, 79. And cartoon-wise, I was interested in more absurdist humor, like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, Tom and Jerry, anything done by Chuck Jones, frankly. And so I missed out on the whole comic book thing. It just wasn't my thing, And I knew some kids who liked it, but most of my friends didn't. Had I had friends who liked comic books, I probably would have liked them. So I don't have a problem with comic books per se. I'm not a fan, but I respect those who are. And, quite frankly, I don't have a problem with escapist entertainment, which is what comic books are. They are an escapist entertainment. It's an entertainment for kids who feel powerless. I mean, that's its origins, of course, and that's its popularity. That's why Peter Parker, for instance, is the most popular of all the characters. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, who is he? He is a teenage boy, and he is a put-upon and not particularly alpha teenager who's, daily struggles through life. He doesn't have a girlfriend, or does have a girlfriend, I forget, it doesn't matter. The point is he's a put-upon young man, and his alter ego is Spider-Man, who is this very powerful superhero, which is sort of like the embodiment and this desire of every teenage boy, He is powerless, that is the average teenage boy, because he's a teenage boy. And yet he yearns to have real power and exercise that real power in the wider world, just as Spider-Man does, just as all the superhero does. Iron Man, Captain America, and all the rest of it. Now, I don't have a problem, as I said, with escapist entertainment. And I think that we all need escapism from our daily routine or our grind. And we have a plethora of different kinds of escapisms. We have entertainments, comic books, novels, movies, music. We have drugs. We have alcohol. We can escape our lives by a myriad of tools at our disposal. So I don't have a problem with escapism because, as I think it was C.S. Lewis, or maybe it was Tolkien, I forget which of the two, said that the only people who hate escapists are jailers. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that we shouldn't have a problem with escapism. And we shouldn't have a problem with escapist entertainment. My problem is when people begin to obsess a little bit too much about the escapist entertainment. They start, buying a costume and buying, the armor and weapons of their superhero or whatever. Then I start to think to myself that this is a little weird. Now recently there's the Comic-Con going on in San Diego, I think. I haven't been following it, but I know that it's going on. And I think it's insane. All of these people indulging in their escapist entertainment. And of course, you who are watching me are going to say, well, you're a big old fuddy-duddy, coach. I mean, what's the problem? They're just having a good time. No, it's not that they're having a good time. It's that they're getting together and reinforcing their psychosis. They are obsessed with comic book characters. They are obsessed with imaginary figures. We should be asking ourselves, why are they obsessed with these imaginary superheroes? Like I said before, superheroes were created to assuage the feelings of powerlessness of teenage boys. But we have grown men in their late 30s, 40s, even their 50s, who are crazy about superheroes. Now, what does that indicate? Now, it would seem to me that it indicates that these grown men feel powerless. These grown men identify with these superheroes who solve all of their problems by way of violence. Now, of course, the superhero who destroys the villain in some epic battle at the end of the episode or run or whatever, there's typical and standard. It's standard for the genre, as it were, and it makes sense because children love that kind of over-the-top entertainment. But for adults, for grown men who find a sort of release by way of the violence of the superhero, what does that indicate? Now, do keep in mind, I'm not saying that we should regulate superheroes or some garbage like that. Of course not. I'm not interested in that kind of thing at all. On the contrary, let whatever the writers want to dream up, let them dream it up. My point is that these superheroes are indicative of a malaise among young people, young men specifically, and not so young men anymore. These men obsess about superheroes because they feel powerless in their lives. And as they normalize the sense of solving a problem by violence, well, they think that any problem in the world can be solved by violence, be it verbal violence or actual physical violence. Now, of course, as any grown man or grown woman can tell you, no problem was ever solved by violence. In point of fact, most social problems that use violence wind up becoming much, much worse. Of course. Adult problems have to be solved with negotiation, with dialogue, with discussion. If grown men are gravitating towards superhero type films, comic books, stories, what have you, what does that indicate? It indicates that they are powerless and that they feel disconnected to any kind of societal mechanism that can solve their problems. They feel much like Peter Parker, a very put-upon young man who is disconnected from his society, who only finds any kind of fulfillment and satisfaction by way of his alter ego, Spider-Man, who solves all his problems. How? By violence. Now, it also indicates that a purveyor of violence, a leader, who starts saying that a problem can be solved by carrying out an act of violence against this group or that other group. I mean, how far away are we from such an individual? Because right now we have Trump, and Trump is a buffoon. He's a used car salesman. He's nobody. But I'm thinking of the one after Trump. What if we have a leader after Trump who starts selling to the people that the problems can be solved by way of violence, just like the superhero? He is the superhero. He is the embodiment of the superhero, and just as a superhero can destroy some problem, he too can destroy some problem by way of violence. See? Because we are normalizing that. And we are finding it easier and easier. And we see it all around us. We see Antifa. Antifa is a terrorist group. There's no other way to put it. And they are trying to, quote unquote, solve their problems by way of violence in a cartoonish, ridiculous way. But that's what they are doing. See, we have to be worried about these people. Not just Antifa, but Antifa is begetting the same kind of violence on the right. How far or how long before an offshoot of the Proud Boys, for instance, turns violent, really violent? And then what will Antifa's response be to them? More violence. We are getting to a point where, as a society, we have to start figuring out a way to solve our problems. And they can't be solved by way of cartoon characters. They have to be solved in realistic ways. The left is hell-bent on silencing dissent. They silence dissent because they think that by silencing dissent, they are somehow magically doing away with the problem. Censoring people does not do away with the problem, it makes it worse. And we are seeing that. And we are seeing a generation of men who believe that ultimately a punch with the expression "pow" on it is the way to solve problems. We are seeing that, and we are seeing it with Antifa. And we are seeing it with the group that will be opposed to Antifa. And we will see it with a group that will ratchet up to give Antifa a fighting chance. We are seeing it. Violence is starting to happen on our streets. I don't know where this ends.